Hello everyone, Adam Reed here, founder and creator of Star Achiever, Tap Your Power Now. And this is part 7 of a 10-part series that covers the 50 best practices used by millionaires and businesses in North America to forward unlimited amounts of success. Now, here in part 7, we're going to start the don'ts. So what do I mean? So when we first started this series, there were two sections. There were the do's to success and the don'ts to success. Now, parts 1 through 6 covered all the do's, and now 7 through 10 will cover all the don'ts. And we're just going to dive right in and get started here. And we're going to start with number 1 of the don'ts, which is don't justify why X didn't work or why you didn't produce the results. Justifications back up a lot of our behaviors. We can justify why we did this and justify why we did that. But if you're out to produce a result, you got to take your justifications out and just be straight up with yourself. I didn't do it and I didn't do it. And that's all there is to it. Now I've got to maybe apologize or clean up or do a little damage control with some sense of acknowledgement, forgiveness, and take responsibility to get our results where we want them to be and be producing again. Justifications, just not a way to support you in being successful, especially when you don't produce the result. So you want to come up with a justification that supports you. I'm going to do it because, and then you give yourself a great justification, one that supports you going forward. So don't justify why X didn't work or why you didn't produce the results. Just get straight with yourself and say, I didn't do it, and I didn't do it, and that's that, and now I'm going forward. Okay, let's jump on to number 2, which is don't blame the client ever. Seriously. I don't know, we can take this over into relationships, and I invite you to listen from both places. If you're someone that actually is after a relationship, listen here. And if you're someone who's business and doing your clients, then you can listen from here. But if you're going to produce the result either way, don't blame the client. Don't. Take responsibility. And the reason we would say don't blame the client is very simple. And that's this. The client it won't foster any goodwill with the client. It won't make your relationship loyal and powerful and great if you spend your time blaming them for everything. And I tell you something, fundamentally as human beings, and we never really talk about this, but fundamentally, we understand that we all have a personal responsibility in any situation. We really do, and we get that on some level. We have a personal responsibility. So if a client screws up, or maybe a partner screws up, a relationship gets screwed up somewhere, don't look to blame them for everything. Just don't do it. Don't do it ever. It's way too costly. Look at what we can do to make that situation be complete and be powerful and be great and be just completely wonderful for everybody involved. All right, let's jump on to don't number 3. Don't think you have to do it all on your own. Wow, people, if there's ever a way to get away from overwhelm, here it is. Don't think you have to do everything on your own. And I want to touch on a couple of things. And I'm saying one is overwhelm. We'll cover that first. So overwhelm is way too many things to do and always feeling like there's not enough time to do it. And the big problem with that is it swims in our head. Overwhelm is all these things we think we have to do on our own that's stuck in our head. Instead of writing it all down and capturing it. I talked earlier in the do section about structure, and this is a great place to resolve overwhelm. Is put everything down. Now, once you've done that, you can take the actions and so on as you see fit, but at least there you don't feel you're doing it on your own and you're not in overwhelm. So here's the other part I want to talk about. As an entrepreneur, we often feel that we have to do everything on our own. And it really can come down to having a sense of trust in the people that we're going to empower to work with us. And we have to delegate those things. And that gives us free time. And that gives us time to use for creativity and to use for focusing on our business in a way that we can grow and expand and develop and learn and everything that you need to do to have your business be successful. But we really got to stop and do some delegation, or stop and write things down and then delegate. Either way, so that we can keep our businesses and our lives on track and not feel like we have to do everything on our own. And there are capable people out there who would love to be a part of what you're up to, would love to contribute. Matter of fact, if you took a moment, I'm sure you could think of 2 or 3 who would just beautifully want to be a part of everything that you're up to. Okay, let's move on. Number 4, don't engage or indulge in gossip. Wow, why would we say this? Gossip is just an incredibly destructive way to have your relationships fall apart. You know, I see this many times in office dynamics where there's a rumor gets kicked up somewhere, and then somebody goes and talks about that person, and somebody goes and talks about that person. And here's a couple of things I want to cover on gossiping in period. First of all, gossip creates an unsafe environment. And what does that mean? Well, when people come to work, it's almost like home for some people. I mean, they spend a good portion of their life and their time in the office. And to have gossip exist in that environment creates a space of unsafety where someone can show up and be like, I can't be myself. I can't say what I need to say. Why? Well, because gossip is happening there. So it shuts down people. So this environment becomes unsafe and it shuts people down. People don't feel free to talk and communicate. They're afraid to be themselves, which is absolutely critical in business, that people express who they are all the time. And if you go back to in the do section, I had said that do everything you do 100% and go up from there. If you got gossip in there, it is undermining everything. So it's incredibly disruptive and destructive. And here's the other thing that I think the person who does the gossip doesn't get is they're tarnishing themselves to other people. So if a person that does a lot of gossiping has very, very minimal trusting relationships, if any. And some people the person who's gossiping may say, yeah, no, my relationships are great and I have lots of trust. But fundamentally, they don't have that. And that keeps everything falling apart in their life. And it has them operate with a certain pretense. And when I say pretense, pretending that things are okay, when the truth is it's not. And so we want to avoid gossip on all levels. The impact there is just extensive. And I don't get too deep into things here because this is a short series. If you get the audio presentation, we'll go way deeper. We can cover so much more and have things really get clear. All right, so let's move on to number 5 in part 7 here. Don't engage or indulge in complaining. Now, there's a couple things I want to say about complaining. So one is, if you're a chronic complainer, you may not have anything to really complain about, right? And that's kind of an interesting thing to say, but people that do a lot of complaining typically don't have much to complain about, but they have a lot of free time. So in that free time, the complaining takes it up, and it can become a chronic issue. Here's the other thing about complaining is there are things to truly complain about, like, you know, you've broke your leg and you've got it resting and it's sore. Yeah, that's worth mentioning. That's worth maybe having a little complaint about. But here's something that I think a lot of people don't really understand. Actually, before I get into that, I'm going to jump into, if you have clientele, don't spend your time complaining to the client. And if the client has something to say and they want to complain about your service, let them. And I'll tell you why. So these 2 points come together to explain what I'm saying here. Behind every complaint is something very interesting and never heard, and that's that there is a commitment by the person complaining. So let's just back up a second. What do I mean? So the person that broke their leg, if they're complaining, guess what? Behind that complaint is a commitment to feel well. Now, people don't articulate that, but they do complain because it's very natural, very ordinary. And that's the same with if you're running a company. The best thing you want in your company is a complaint section, and encourage your clients to complain. Yes, why? Because behind those complaints, you can start to get a sense of what are the commitments that people have, and then you can actually market to the commitment, and that will draw people into your company and have them purchasing and staying loyal. And they'll have a particular sense of being understood, or said another way, gotten by you as a business, because they'll fundamentally get that you get their commitment. All right, so that's it for now. We're going to wrap up here on part 7, and it's great talking to you. And if you love this series, look down here below this video and you'll see 2 links. Check us out on Facebook is one, or the other is go to our website where you can get our free ebook with the journal where we ask many questions that will open up so much more for you than this series is doing. And we'd just love to have you get that program and keep going with your continued success. Again, this is Adam Reed from Tap Your Power Now, Star Achiever. Talking to you soon.